Helmets on for safety. Welcome back to Random, and today I'm back here at Hill Aerospace Museum where we're going to talk about that one time a colonel, or more likely an Air Force general, read a book and talked about it in the polished halls of the Pentagon and decided to put a laser on a 135 to shoot down missiles in flight. But before that, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and that means cold beverages and groovy tunes. Check out Beer and Song of the Day. The link to that channel will be in the description down below. Now, back in the very late 70s and very early 1980s, again, a Air Force colonel, or more than likely general, was reading a fictional work about an Air Force program to put a laser, a chemical laser, on an aircraft to shoot down missiles in flight. And as he was talking about it with the other generals that may or may not have been in the room, a former governor of California came in and said, a laser on an aircraft to shoot down missiles. That sounds like a really good program to add into this other thing I'm doing called Star Wars. And so the first Airborne Laser project began. And like I said, it used a KC-135 because it was something the Air Force had a lot of at the time. Now, the purpose of that project, of course, was to shoot down missiles in flight using focused, collated beams of light. Now, the program at the time didn't really have a way of generating a whole lot of photons electrically, so the option they had was to use iodine and oxygen. The reason they use those two elements is because when an element oxidizes, it releases a whole lot of energy all at once. And so what that does is that energy also creates photons, and those photons can be coalesced and collected, focused and filtered, and directed at a particular target that you want to engage. And so this is 1980s technology, okay? So we're talking very early integrated circuits, relays, and in some cases vacuum tubes being used to help guide and aim a beam of light to a target from an airborne platform, while the target is also airborne and traveling at a different distance, at a different speed, at a different altitude. All of this to say, back in the 1980s, we were able to successfully have an airborne laser engage and destroy an airborne missile while it was doing its thing. Absolutely incredible for the time. Now, let's see if my editor actually put any helpful notes in for this episode. So, time goes on, technology improves, and again, this is a chemical laser, okay? So the products, or the reactants, once they are used up, they can't be used again. Now, at the time, those reactants were also pretty toxic, so it was kind of hazardous to deal with. But really hard to argue with the results at the end, because, you know, focused, collated light shooting down a missile from an aircraft. That's pretty darn impressive for any era. So that technology was further refined and developed, and of course the Star Wars program ultimately went bust. But a lot of that research and a lot of that R&D went into the future airborne laser project, started up in the late 1990s on into the 2000s. Now again, that aircraft used a chemical laser called a chemical oxygen iodine laser. So again, chemical reaction to generate photons, which were then collated, collected, focused, and filtered, and then aimed at a particular target in flight. Now, the airborne target, or the airborne laser project from the 1990s into the 2000s, used a 747 aircraft, of which there were 2 that are retired, if you believe that kind of thing. Now, the upgrades included beam stabilization, basically meaning when you're shooting a laser through an atmosphere, there's something called drop-off rate, okay? So basically, the laser, as the photons are traveling through the atmosphere, those photons will interact with the gases of the atmosphere and basically cause the beam to refract and basically come out of focus after a certain distance. It's what's called drop-off. The Airborne Laser project in the 1990s kind of helped focus and kind of redirect that energy so the beam wouldn't split up quite so fast in atmosphere, so it could engage targets further out. Now, of course, it was used primarily against air-to-air missiles, okay? So things like Sidewinders, HARMs, and things like that. And it was theorized to be used against multiple independent reentry vehicles from ICBMs. Now, why would you want to use that for that purpose? Okay, so there's a couple of different reasons, chief among which a laser, of course, being the most direct and farthest reaching thing you can use against a MIRV. There's just one problem. As a MIRV is traveling through the atmosphere, typically at Mach 10, it's traveling so fast that the atmosphere around it excites to a plasmic state. And well, energy absorbs energy, and to penetrate or defeat what is effectively a plasma shield around a MIRV, you have to superheat it to the point where you get gaps in that plasma field, and then the laser can do its job against the warhead. Again, theoretical. We haven't really tested it because thankfully we really never really had to. Okay. Used to engage and destroy airborne threats as early as the 1980s. And again, the technology has only gotten better, because if you remember a story a little while ago about the US Navy having an all-electric close-in weapon support system, directed energy weapon. That's right, there is a laser turret on a Navy destroyer right now that has already successfully defeated airborne threats. So that's pretty cool. Now again, that technology was also adapted and collected and basically refined to the point where now we can have externally mounted weapons pylons for potentially fighter aircraft to also have directed energy weapons that are all electric. Now, my editor and I can neither confirm nor deny the possibility of this happening, but it is rumored that the entirety of the late 1990s and very early 2000s Airborne Laser project was never about shooting down missiles in flight using focused correlated light. It was about the targeting system. That's it. Now, if you believe the chatter, that targeting system may or may not be the size of a standard fire control computer for an aircraft. Now, you can integrate that with currently existing weapon systems like air-to-air missiles, 20mm Vulcans, and in this case, airborne lasers, to engage and destroy missiles in flight, or MIRVs, if you're able to do it. Now, if you also believe the sky, so that's kind of interesting and also pretty terrifying when you consider that now, at the push of a button, a turret can deploy and vaporize a missile from 50 or 60 miles away. So pretty interesting stuff. If you got anything out of this video, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. It helps the channel. Tell my editor what he's doing wrong. Tell me what I'm doing right. Suggest content ideas. My editor and I are always coming up with new ideas, but ultimately we want to help entertain and educate our viewers. So that's it for today, and as always, keep it random.